I have a dream.
You can't connect the dots looking forward.
One small step for man.
You can only connect them looking
One
backwards.
giant leap for mankind.
I am the greatest.
You need to have support. How many are turning to starting their own businesses?
Decision is the ultimate power.
The greatest bands need great producers.
Music fans bought more than 1 billion individual songs from online services such as Apple's iTunes.
Trick yourself out of habits and find a new angle.
Anything is possible.
If it feels right, move forward. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it.
Every dream starts small.
Good morning, entrepreneurs around the world. This is our time, and our planet will be our playing ground. We entrepreneurs have changed and will continue to change our societies like no one has done it in the history of our world. Welcome to the Entrepreneur Show. My name is Lacopo, and I will be your host for this new show where the focus will solely be on the best profession in the world, entrepreneurship. Let me start by saying that I'm not a professional host. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an engineer by trade, and I've decided to undertake this challenge because I think in entrepreneurship, the best way to learn is through experience sharing. So every week, we'll take an honest look at a key question relating to entrepreneurship. I will break down the myths around it based on my experience to find the real deal. I will share my personal experience in dealing with these issues. The objective is not to give answers about right and wrong based on the question, but really to share experiences. And hopefully, it will help entrepreneurs make better decisions in their journey to change our world. Now, this week's question is the following. Between Barack Obama, Greenpeace, and Steve Jobs, who has the greatest impact in our society? Politicians, activists, or entrepreneurs? Does one of these career choices make you more likely to truly change the world? Because ultimately, our contribution, our legacy, will be measured by the impact we have on other people. And I have a quote here, which I really love, from Albert Pike, which kind of states the meaning of entrepreneurship. Well, for me, that is. And it goes as follows. What we have done for ourselves alone dies with us. What we have done for others and the world remains and is immortal. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are always striving for that. We want to create, we want to innovate. We want to be able to say one day that we had an impact of how the world is today or how the world will be tomorrow. Now, during the broadcast, I'll be available on Twitter. So my name is Lacopo in one word. And I'll be there during the show to answer questions if you want to discuss the topic or if you have any reaction on the topic. You should also try to follow me if you would want to have some daily updates or weekly updates during the week. But before we discuss the question of the week, I would like to take some time to tell you a bit about myself, to make you understand what is entrepreneurship. I don't want to define what entrepreneurship is. There's millions of definitions out there. There's a lot of people that define entrepreneurship in different ways. I think the best way to define entrepreneurship is just to tell you of my experience and what I went through to create my new company. So let's try first to look at different words that people might use to describe entrepreneurship. So here are a couple. Risk takers, ambitious, dreamers, lifestyle, adventurous, driven, corruption, dropouts, money, glamour, power, independence. And the last word I kept for last is I'll describe it to you with a scene from one of the movies that I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs have seen out there, which is The Social Network. It's a scene where Sean Parker gets up in the morning and he's in this lady's room, student from Stanford, and the woman tells him or asks him, goes, Sean, what do you do for a living? And Sean answers back, she goes, I'm an entrepreneur. And the woman, the first reaction she has goes, you mean you're unemployed? So that was a great scene. And it was a really funny way of kind of describing what a lot of people say sometimes about entrepreneurship. Now, her reaction changed when he mentioned that he was the founder of Napster. So it was pretty cool. So that's one of these are some of the words. So let's look at my experience, and maybe you'll be able to come up with some of these words I've already said through my experience of creating my first project. Now, the first question a lot of people ask me is, are we born entrepreneurs? And there's a lot of studies and a lot of opinions out there about that. And some people ask me, how come some people are so ambitious and others are not? What makes people ambitious? Well, in my opinion, I think ambition starts from a very, very early stage. Now, I wasn't born an entrepreneur. I didn't have parents with a lot of money that could have, let's say, invested on my first project. I wasn't extroverted. I was very shy within myself, especially growing up high school, college. So how come I'm an entrepreneur today? For me, I think if you want to create the ambitious seed in people, it starts when you're a child, when you're growing up, 2, 3, 4 years old, 5 years old. And it starts with parents. I was lucky that growing up, my father always thought I was going to become the next Bill Gates. He always told me that it was okay to dream and never stop myself from aiming extremely high. And I think the fact that I was able to tell my dreams to my families, my friends, and saying that, and was convinced that one day, I didn't know how, when, in which field, but I knew that one day, I knew I was going to have my company. I knew I was going to have an impact in our society. And I think that is the seed that when you grow up with that seed being able to dream and having confidence that it's okay, I think that is the beginning of developing the entrepreneurship character. Now, here is another quote that I like, and I read it from one of the books from Robin Sharma. And I love the way he said it. And he said that for things to be able to be created in our world, they need to be created twice. They need to be created in our minds first before we're able to create it in our world. So if we can't see ourselves as the next Steve Jobs, as the next Guy Laliberté, how do we expect that we'll be able to develop a company of that nature, of that power? So I think it's really important for people that are striving to become entrepreneurs, that want to create beautiful projects around the world, that they're not afraid. You should never be afraid to dream. You should never be afraid to let it out, your ambitions, and to put them out there and have confidence in yourself. Now, where did I start? So I went to high school, college. I graduated in university. I did a bachelor in engineering in telecommunication. I went to work for a telecom company for a couple of years. And like most of entrepreneurs or people that have that entrepreneurship character, they get pretty bored fast when they work for other people. And that's one thing that happened with me is, after working for this telecom company, I went to another telecommunication company for another engineering job. And, I was getting kind of my drive to succeed and to progress at a fast pace was too much for what the companies were able to give me. So I was getting bored very quickly. But there was a light that went on, and it was the winter of 2001. I remember clearly I was sitting on the couch of my apartment watching TV. It was an evening, and my wife on my right side planning her lesson plan for her next day at school. And I told myself that, growing up and all my dreams and my ideas of becoming entrepreneurship and creating this amazing company one day, that if I had to do that, it wasn't going to be done by me sitting on the couch. It wasn't just going to fall in my lap. So on that evening, I've decided that I was going to start my entrepreneurship project. And again, entrepreneurship doesn't need to happen in one day. You could plan entrepreneurship. And that's what I did. So the next morning, so winter 2001, I went to a university and subscribed myself to, a certificate in law. Now, you would ask me, why a certificate in law? What does that have to do with entrepreneurship? Well, for me, I knew that one day I was going to become an entrepreneur. I knew that one day I would have my company. So I wanted to be able to get the most tools I could have had in order to be the most independent once I would be an entrepreneur. Because I don't like to depend on other people. I like to be able to raise my own red flags. So I thought, by starting, because having the background of a more of technical person, I had no notions of, marketing, business, legal notions. So I thought by starting with a certificate in law, it would start giving some notions on very important topic, which is the law, right? So I started my certificate in law. So from 2001 to 2008, I did my certificate in law, which later I converted to my Bachelor of Law. And I did an MBA in business and finance. So during that span, I was doing these studies, again, to get, these tools, different tools. So when I started my project, I think I would have much more confidence in the decision I would be able to make. Now, I did these studies on part-time, but 2006 came around. And now I was really starting to itch to starting my new project. I was working for a smaller startup. I was 6 months in, and I was bored. My mind wasn't there. I really wanted to start a business. I had a couple of problems though. The first problem that I had, and I think it's a major problem, is I knew I could have been a great entrepreneur, but I didn't know in what field. I didn't know, what exactly was I going to be able to sell. Now, with my past experience, I worked in telecommunication companies, I worked in IT companies. So I told myself, I'll put myself out there and I'll try to sell my consulting services. Let's take a short break now, and I'll come back with the conclusion of my story and the question of the week.
What's going on behind the scenes with your favorite Voice America show or host? For the latest news, visit the iRadio blog at iradioblog.com.
Hi, I'm your customer. We've been together for a while, but sometimes it feels like you take me for granted. Sure, you answer when I call. You tell me things will be all right, but I feel like we're growing apart. Maybe it's time we, start seeing other people.
Your customers have more options than ever to take their business across the street, and many believe that the competition is more eager to have their business than you are. What are you doing to make sure your customers are happy, satisfied, loyal?
Please leave a message after the tone.
Can you send another technician?
You guys are the worst company. Can I speak to the supervisor?
This isn't working. How many times are we going to...
What is wrong with you guys? Can we fix this once and for all?
Do I have a contract with you? This is ridiculous.
No, it doesn't work. It just doesn't.
Thank you for calling.
Don't confuse customer satisfaction with customer service. Utopia Image helps you map out the entire client interaction and provides an organic approach to make sure that the issues that make your customers unhappy are really being fixed in real time. Call Utopia Image 1-866-242-5592 or utopiaimage.com.
We're making it easier to listen to the Voice America Talk Radio Network wherever you go. In addition to listening live, you can check out information about your favorite talk show hosts, discover new talk show personalities, add shows to your list of favorites, and listen to all our show archives on demand. All from your iPhone, BlackBerry, or Android. Download it from the Apple App Store, BlackBerry App World, or Android Market, and get ready to tune in. The Voice America mobile app, powered by Aircast.
Entrepreneurial Insights is your weekly excursion into the world of business ownership. Presented by Sunbelt Business Brokers, the leading business brokerage and intermediary firm in the world. Entrepreneurial Insights will examine critical issues that impact both existing and prospective business owners. If you own or want to own a small business, listen for Entrepreneurial Insights with John Davies, Pino Baccinello, and Matt Ottaway. Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Business Channel.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
Welcome back to The Entrepreneur. My name is Anthony Lacopo, and today we're dealing with the following question. Between Barack Obama, Greenpeace, and Steve Jobs, who has the greatest impact in our society? But before we target this question, let's get back to the conclusion of my story. Now, we ended the first segment. I was mentioning that I didn't know exactly what type of company I wanted to build. I didn't know which field, but I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I was kind of debating into putting myself out there and starting as a consultant, or like the lady in the social network was mentioning, unemployed. So let me give you a bit what was happening in my life in April 2006. So I was employed by this startup company. I was in marketing. My wife has just given birth to my daughter in March, so a month earlier. She was home already for 2 years because my son was born the year before. And we had just bought our first home. So if I think like an entrepreneur in April, with me being the sole provider, because like I mentioned, my wife was home for the last 2 years, I thought it was the perfect timing for my entrepreneurship project. A lot of people thought I was crazy. That's why nobody knew what I was about to do. So what happened is in April 2006 is I had a 5 seconds of insanity where I stopped my brain from thinking the reasons of why I shouldn't launch my project during that time. Because that's a problem. You know, in entrepreneurship or people that want to start businesses, we continuously try to develop, to plan our project, but there's a point in time where you have to stop planning, where you have to stop defining alternatives of worst case, best case. You just have to put yourself out there. And that's what happened in April 2006. I forced myself to be extremely uncomfortable. I went to my boss and I gave my resignation letter. And I left my employment, my job, the sole thing that was giving me money to survive. Now, I had no choice then. The next day, I had no jobs. I had no money coming in. So just to make an analogy with a lot of entrepreneurs out there, you know, the Vikings, when they used to go conquer new territory, once they used to reach the island or the territory, the first thing they used to do when everybody got off the boats, they used to burn the boats. Why? Because there was no turning back. Once you put yourself out there, you could only go forward. And it's incredible how the human body reacts when he understands that there's no plan B. So when I did that in 2006 and left my job, the biggest influence or the biggest thing that could have influenced the success of my project, because the only thing I had in 2006 when I left my job was an incorporation paper with the name of my company. I didn't know what I was selling. I didn't know to who I was going to sell, but I had a company. And that was the first step of my project. Now, the thing that could have influenced the most the success of this project, of course, it would have been my family. Because it's incredible, you know, especially like I mentioned, the situation that I was in. If I was going to tell anybody about this project that I had, everybody would have thought that I would have been crazy. And the pressure that I would have had on top of my shoulders will be maybe unbearable. So what I've decided to do, because it was my project, because it was my responsibility, is that I took my personal line of credit on my own, before leaving the job, of course. And I gave myself a 6-month window to say, if the worst case scenario, if it doesn't work, well, I would have indebted myself with a certain amount of money, which I was confident with my experience and my education background, I was going to be able to repay in a decent time frame. So I came home that day when I left my job, and it was a regular evening. I decided not to tell nobody, including my wife. Not because, you know, I thought I didn't think she was going to support me, but because I didn't want to put this pressure on her shoulder. It was my pressure to handle. So from April 2006 till about July 2006, I went to work, or I pretended to go to work, like if I had my job. I was going to the same neighborhoods, I used to go to a cafe, which I was going when I had my job, trying to do cold call, try to find customers, try to sell my services as consultant in IT. So during that period, and I need to kind of, come back to, I didn't tell my wife, but one thing I need to do a precision on is that, I know my wife for a very long time. We've been together since I was 16 years old. She knows the type of person I am. And I knew, she would understand, when the day would come and I would tell her. So I decided not to tell nobody and start my project. So like that, the only pressure that I needed to support was myself. Now, if I just make another link with the social network, it's the same thing when Mark Zuckerberg decided to move to California, Palo Alto. He knew he needed to do that move to put himself in the right position to have success. So that's what I did. I put myself in a situation where I could have not succeed. And I had a lot of confidence in myself. I knew I was going to succeed. I knew it was just a matter of time. I was driven, and I knew something big was about to happen. The problem is, it wasn't as happening as fast as I thought it was. So it kind of created a lot of stress on my shoulders. So what happened is that April came, left. July came. Now I'm in July. It's about 4 or 5 months that I'm out there and absolutely nothing. I've been financing my lifestyle with my personal line of credit. But in July, I get this telephone from an old colleague, which I did my MBA with. And he calls me up and he says, Anthony, I know you started a business. I go, yes, I have a business. I have a company. I didn't tell him I had no revenue and no customers, but I had a business. And he told me that they were looking, his company, which was another telecommunication company, were looking for a provider to do surveys. That they weren't satisfied with their current provider, so they were looking for somebody to do surveys, and he had asked me if I was interested. So I told him, of course I'm interested. We're going to be doing the best surveys you've ever seen in your lifetime. The problem is I was in my basement. I never worked in a survey company or a marketing research company. But entrepreneurship is not about being an expert in what you do. It's about seizing opportunities. And for me, that was the first real opportunity. So he set up a meeting for me to go meet with the executives of his company, which I presented myself with the best tool an entrepreneur could have, which was my PowerPoint slides or keynote slides, depending which one you like better. But I presented myself with a deck of slides talking of how I will revolutionize the survey industry. So I did my presentation and I left. A couple days after, I get a call, saying, it was beginning of August, saying, Anthony, you got the contract. You need to be live September 11, 2006. And that was the beginning of my journey. The problem was that when he told me that, I was in my basement. I had no employees. I had no software to do these surveys. I had absolutely nothing. The only thing that I had was my PowerPoint deck. So at that point, when I got home that day, that's when I told my wife the whole thing, what happened since April. Of course, she kind of was surprised and a bit, she was a bit mad, I have to say. It lasted a couple of minutes, maybe 5, maybe 10. But she completely backed me up. She understood. She knew that I always had our best interest, in mind. So after I told her, because I knew starting from then, I had not even a month to put all this in place, I knew I wasn't going to be home much. So that's when it all started. So I launched my company, hired people. We were ready for September 11, 2006. We hired our first 4 or 5 employees. And today, we're based here in Quebec, Canada. And I have a company which I'm sole shareholder right now with over 200 employees. And we're kind of becoming the reference in the industry we're serving. So that is the story of, my entrepreneurship adventure. How I started and how I was able to build something to where it is today. Now, a lot of people told me, Anthony, you were lucky, man. You were lucky that, you got that phone call in July. And when people tell you that, when people, because of your success, because you get a break, they tell you you're lucky. Let me tell you this. I was in MIT doing some classes, and one of the entrepreneurs had told me this, right, about luck. And people are lucky, but the problem is, what people don't understand is that luck favors the well-prepared. Now, people say, yeah, I got lucky that I got that phone call. But the reason I got that phone call, you have to go all the way back to 2001 when I decided to start my project, going to school, met the right people, left my job, put myself out there to get that phone call. Luck doesn't just happen. If I was sitting still on my couch like I was in 2001, I wouldn't have got that phone call. So to everybody that they've been told that they were lucky, I tell you, yes, you were lucky, but you made your own luck. You prepared yourself to receive that luck, and then you took that opportunity and you made it a success. So let me finish my story with the following quote, or it's my own quote, that again, when I was younger, when I was a teenager, somebody had told me, and it goes like this: if when you tell your dreams and when you tell your ambitions to your family, to your surroundings, to your friends or your colleagues, if these people don't laugh, that means you're not dreaming or ambitioning hard enough. So let's finish our second segment with this, and we'll get back to you with the question of the week.
Be sure to friend us on Facebook. You can do it right now. Visit facebook.com/Voice America or search for us at keyword Voice America.
Hi, I'm your customer. We've been together for a while, but sometimes it feels like you take me for granted. Sure, you answer when I call. You tell me things will be all right, but I feel like we're growing apart. Maybe it's time we, start seeing other people.
Your customers have more options than ever to take their business across the street, and many believe that the competition is more eager to have their business than you are. What are you doing to make sure your customers are happy, satisfied, loyal?
Please leave a message after the tone.
Can you send another technician?
You guys are the worst company. Can I speak to the supervisor?
This isn't working. How many times are we going to...
What is wrong with you guys? I mean, can we fix this once and for all?
Do I have a contract with you? This is ridiculous.
No, it doesn't work. It just doesn't.
Thank you for calling.
Don't confuse customer satisfaction with customer service. Utopia Image helps you map out the entire client interaction and provides an organic approach to make sure that the issues that make your customers unhappy are really being fixed in real time. Call Utopia Image 1-866-242-5592 or utopiaimage.com.
Follow the Voice America Talk Radio Network on Twitter. We're at Voice America TRN. You'll get the latest fix on what's happening with our shows, this week's featured guests, and general happenings that you should know about at the Voice America Talk Radio Network. Now you don't have to miss anything when you're away from your home or office. Just go to twitter.com/Voice America TRN or follow along with us at Voice America TRN, the Voice America Talk Radio Network. We're on the cutting edge of social media.
Can you keep up?
There's a course offered on Seventh Wave Network that you never saw offered in college. One that provides information on how to transform ancient wisdom teachings into everyday life. You'll learn how to create from your spirit and explore the world with all of your senses. Participation is encouraged. Enroll in Spirituality 101, the course you can't afford to miss, with your host, Reverend Norma. Class is in session every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 noon Pacific Time, in your favorite classroom, Seventh Wave Network. When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
Welcome back to the Entrepreneur Show. My name is Anthony Lacopo, and I'm your host. Hope you enjoyed the first two segments about my story of entrepreneurship. Don't hesitate if you have any reactions, questions, feedback, to follow me on Twitter, to ask me these questions on Twitter. I'll be on while this show is on and also during the whole week. Also, you can look for the fan page of The Entrepreneur on Facebook. So before going to the question of the week, let me read you a couple of statistics. So, did you know that the bulk of unemployment in North America is done by SMBs. SMBs are small, medium businesses, which are driven most by entrepreneurs. More than 98% of all US businesses are considered SMBs. 98%, that's a huge number. And those companies are responsible for more than 45% of all private payrolls and 80% of the new jobs created over the past decade. This includes companies also in franchise sector as well. We can't always think about, entrepreneurs and Facebook or Twitter, or LinkedIn. Entrepreneurship is everywhere. It could be through artists, it could be through franchisee, it could be really anyone that has a project that has confidence and puts it in place himself. So the latest data, if we look at, in franchise, they say that for every 1 million in lending that franchises get, they create over 34.1 jobs and more than 3.6 million in total economic output. That's, those are huge numbers. So SMBs have been the forefront of technological and managerial innovation over the past 50 years. Why? Because they work with limited resources. They need to succeed with limited resources. And that's one of our greatest characteristics of entrepreneurship. We could do amazing things with a little resources. If you look at Microsoft, Intel, Apple, even Google, even Facebook, right? They all started up as SMBs. And then they leverage their innovation into huge brands. So let's get back to the question of the week. Between Barack Obama, Greenpeace, and Steve Jobs, who has the greatest impact in our society? Politicians, activists, or entrepreneurs? Does one of these career choices make you more likely to truly change the world? Because ultimately, our contribution, our legacy, will be measured by the impact we have on other people. So let's start with Mr. Obama. Why did I choose Mr. Barack Obama? It's very simple, and I'm sure everybody understands, is that he was one of the biggest politician in our generation. If I look at Barack Obama and what he has done, particularly at the beginning of his a road to becoming the president of the United States. So how he got elected. I'd like to put a bit more emphasis on that because I think Mr. Barack Obama had the qualities, had the drive, had the characteristics of an entrepreneur. Politicians are kind of like entrepreneurs in the way that once you throw yourself out there, once you go into politics, you have to stay the line, stay the course, and go full speed ahead. You can't really look back. So what was impressive by Barack Obama is how he used social media to get elected. He embraced it. So if we look in the past, communication is really the key to any politician's success. But understanding the opportunity and grabbing it of what is the future communication, that can be the secret to winning any war. So that's what entrepreneurship do all the time. If I look at one of the most famous phrases by one of the greatest athletes in the world, which played in one of the greatest sports in the world, hockey, and we look at what Gretzky said, and he said, you don't need to skate where the puck is. You need to skate where the puck will be. And that's what gave him a lot of success. And I think Obama did the same thing when he kind of envisioned. He saw the potential of social media when nobody else saw it. So in the past, for Franklin Roosevelt, it was radio. For John F. Kennedy, it was television. And for Barack Obama, he knew that the secret to his success was going to come through social media. So he campaigned strong through Web 2.0, through YouTube, through Facebook. He was able to get directly to his crowd, to the people that he needed to talk to. I lost count of how many friends are following him. I know in Twitter he's over 50 million people are following him. can you imagine when he states something on Twitter, there's 50 million people right away that gets it? That's a huge power to have. So he understood that. And I think I would give him that the way he started this campaign, his style, his what he wanted to do was really, he really acted like an entrepreneur. Now, the other point that I liked about Barack Obama is not only the tools that he used, but also one of the key to any successful entrepreneurs or any successful business people is the key is to surround themselves with great people. Now, Barack Obama, through his election, he had an ace up his sleeve. And he hired one of the founders of Facebook, which is Chris Hughes. Because he knew that he knew what social media was, social networking. So by being able to hire Chris, Obama kind of secured his position in social media, and he was able to have put in place great strategy. So it's important to be able to kind of predict the future, to predict where the puck will be. But what's also very important is to be well surrounded once you get to where the puck is. And I think Barack Obama did it fantastically, and we see the results today. But now, once he got elected, once you are elected as a politician, you could have great ideas, you could have a great vision, you could have a beautiful picture of what the world could be and the potential of your own society. But the problem is that you can't do what you want when you're in politics. And that's a fact. You're surrounded by people, you're surrounded by different organizations, you're surrounded by a lot of types of people that you need to satisfy. And that's one of the biggest difference of entrepreneurship. Because entrepreneurship could fail more than once, but they're able to bounce back. And the difference, again, between entrepreneurs, business, and social and politician is that leaders of a business or even a nonprofit, like activists, can hit a snags, even perhaps have a big flop, but they're able to recover. They're unfazed by the fact that they followed the wrong strategy. In the opposite, politicians, however, they often feel like they cannot make that choice. Because if they make a wrong decision, their party could suffer. They could lose the next election. Therefore, that's why politicians are kind of missing one of the biggest key ingredients of entrepreneurship is risk-taking. They're very risk-adverse. Politician needs votes, which is they often, their core beliefs, sometimes they hide what they truly believe. They hide their opinions because they want to satisfy the most people possible, because they want to get reelected. Compared to entrepreneurs, they have to answer to their bottom line. Sometimes they have to take unpopular decisions because their interest is the success of their companies or their project. And a lot of the livelihoods of others that they surround them could be affected if they don't take the right decision. So entrepreneurs embrace risk, while politicians, most of them, are risk adverse. But to be fair, entrepreneurs can afford to take risks compared to politicians. Now, in conclusion, politicians might have a lot of entrepreneur characteristics, might try to act like entrepreneurs, kind of the early stage. But once they get to a certain level, they kind of become stuck in this paradigm where they can't take risks. They have to satisfy with most of the people because they need to get elected. But entrepreneurs, they could go full steam ahead. They could hit a wall, get back up, and go again full speed ahead. And that's why I think entrepreneurs have a huge impact on our societies and they're able to bring more value. But politicians have one critical responsibility, and it's to listen to entrepreneurs around the whole society, to be able to develop an environment where innovation is welcome, and also to permit people to have an environment where businesses could be created from a single idea. And I think Mr. Barack Obama understood that, because in his latest State of the Union, he mentioned the following, and I quote, "In America, innovation doesn't just change our lives, it's how we make a living." And I give him full marks for that. Now that we finish with the politician, what do you out there think? Do you think that politicians could really change our societies? Should they have a mandate to change our societies? I'm on Twitter right now. If you have any opinion on the politician, don't hesitate to write to me. And after the break, we'll continue with the activists and Steve Jobs as the entrepreneur.
We're making it easier to listen to the Voice America Talk Radio Network live wherever you go on iPhone, BlackBerry, or Android. Download it from the Apple iTunes App Store, BlackBerry App World, or Android Market.
Hi, I'm your customer. We've been together for a while, but sometimes it feels like you take me for granted. Sure, you answer when I call. You tell me things will be all right, but I feel like we're growing apart. Maybe it's time we, start seeing other people.
Your customers have more options than ever to take their business across the street, and many believe that the competition is more eager to have their business than you are. What are you doing to make sure your customers are happy, satisfied, loyal?
Please leave a message after the tone.
Can you send another technician?
You guys are the worst company. Can I speak to the supervisor?
This isn't working. How many times are we going to...
What is wrong with you guys? Can we fix this once and for all?
Do I have a contract with you? This is ridiculous.
No, it doesn't work. It just doesn't.
Thank you for calling.
Don't confuse customer satisfaction with customer service. Utopia Image helps you map out the entire client interaction and provides an organic approach to make sure that the issues that make your customers unhappy are really being fixed in real time. Call Utopia Image 1-866-242-5592 or utopiaimage.com. Now there's a new destination for video content, voiceamerica.tv. Just like our radio channels and so much more. Voice America Variety, Health and Wellness, Business, Sports, Green Talk, Power Up Motorsports, and Seventh Wave Network now have their own video channel components. Plus, check out exclusive programming, including movies, music, educational courses, science and history, current events, and short features. High-definition, premier quality programs available 24/7. VoiceAmerica.tv. If you think you've seen online TV like this before, let us surprise you.
Technology is intended to improve our lives and solve the world's problems. But technology in itself is a complex myriad of concepts, ideas, and security. How do we sort it all out? Tune in to Technology Today with host Ajay Gupta. The program will go inside the world of technology with innovators, engineers, CEOs, and government officials. Our topics will include green technology, healthcare technology, and cybersecurity. Listen every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Business Channel.
Welcome back to The Entrepreneur. My name is Anthony Lacopo. So now we're in the last segment where we'll look at the activists and the entrepreneur. What do you all think about the three first segments? Any opinions? You have any comments? Don't hesitate. I'm on Twitter right now, so if you have any comments, I'll be gladly to answer them or to give you some feedback. Now let's get back to the question. So between Barack Obama, Greenpeace, and Steve Jobs, who has the greatest impact in our societies? So now that we looked at the politicians and looked at that they had some entrepreneurship characteristics, but they're kind of limited to where they could go once they're on in politics, let's look at activists. So activists in general, I find they're very entrepreneurial-like because they work with very limited resources to do big things. And if we look at Greenpeace, the way they force companies sometimes to rethink how they go about their businesses. If they weren't there, maybe a lot of innovation wouldn't exist, because companies sometimes, when they get to a certain level, they kind of come lazy. And you have kind of that check with activists that sometimes if you kind of derail, from the right road, they kind of bring you back to, and give you like kind of a check to say, maybe you should rethink, because this is going to hurt, whether, you're an activist for the environment or for a group of a society. They kind of make you rethink, because in our world today, it's nice to innovate. It's nice to bring our society forward, but we should do it at the same time while caring by the environment, while caring for different groups out there. And that's true innovation. And I think activists has a huge role in that. And as much as they kind of, force companies or force people to take different decisions to protect their interests, I don't think they kind of have the ambitions, or I would say the drive, like an entrepreneur. I don't see activists like people that will change the world directly. I see activists like they will change the world because they force people to rethink ideas. They force people to take notice of their environment that surrounds them in order to create durable innovation or renewable innovation. Look at all the energy sector. Right now, all the focus is on oil and how societies could build their own renewable energy to kind of reduce the dependencies in oil. So for that, I think activists has a role to play in changing our societies. So now that we looked at the politician and their role in how to change our societies and to make our world a better place, and we look at activists, I would like to talk about, my focus, which is I would like to talk about Steve Jobs and entrepreneurs. I truly think that the reason why we're living the lives we're living today, the tools that we have today, are all driven by people with great ideas, people that are not afraid to try these ideas. Like I mentioned in the prior segments, they'll hit a wall, but they'll get back up. And my reflection is always, what happens if Microsoft would have never existed? Would our society would have evolved as fast as it did? What happened if, Napster didn't exist? A lot of people were against Napster to, kind of all the illegal downloading of music. But Napster forced the music industry to reform itself. And now we see the fruit of that reform through iTunes, through digital music, which Apple and Steve Jobs had the great vision of taking that opportunity. If we look at Steve Jobs, it wasn't always rosy. An entrepreneur doesn't have the life, it's not always positive. It's ups and downs. You fail as much as you succeed, but you learn more through failures than through success. And Steve Jobs didn't always succeed. In fact, he left Apple at a certain point in its early beginnings. And then he came back. So Steve Jobs did tremendous good for Apple. And Apple, if you look at our societies today, with all the technology that they're driving to us, it's really impressive how, they're able to change how people interact, how people use media. And I find it very, very inspiring. I think entrepreneurs are the ones that will make our societies better. If we want to make our societies better, if we want to have access to the liberty of using resources around the world, and that brings the world together. What brought the worlds together? Think about it today, how the world is much closer today than it was maybe 10 years ago. And what caused that? Was it politicians? Was it religious groups? No, it was entrepreneurs. It was people like Mark Zuckerberg that created tools or this platform that made people be able to discover themselves. Look at what Twitter is doing. Look at what Facebook is doing around the world to be able to make people express themselves freely. Entrepreneurs are the engine of the development of our societies. Entrepreneurs develop incredible tools, services, based on ideas, based on the hope of being able to make a difference in our world. Look at, for example, the telecommunication market. In the past, the rates of long distance were extremely high. Today, the competition is not telecommunication companies, it's companies like Skype that was able to introduce new services, new ways of communicating, and permitting people to have easier access to communicate around the world at a very low cost. Entrepreneurs develop tools to change the world. I have a quote here from Richard Buckminster Fuller, which is a great quote and emphasizes on how entrepreneurs are really changing the world. And it states as follows: if you want to teach people a new way of thinking, don't bother trying to teach them. Instead, give them a tool, the use of which will lead the new ways of thinking. And Facebook is a perfect example of this. You see, we could talk about entrepreneurship, and if I come back to the beginning when we say entrepreneur and the different words, there's a lot of words that could describe entrepreneurship. But I think that when politicians say that they want to change the world, when activists say they want to make a better world, and when entrepreneurship or entrepreneurs are saying that they want to change the world, entrepreneurs are, I think, in my personal view, are the ones who state it, develop the idea, execute it, and have the biggest impact in our society, in our everyday lives. Look at everything we use today. Look at the way you're living today. Look at email. Email was created because of internet, right? Imagine a world today without email, without cellular phone, without SMS. I think one day without email in our world would create panic, because it all comes down to communication. People love to communicate. People love to share. And that is why, and that is the objective of this show. And that's why I wanted to do this show, is because I want to be able to just share. I'm not here with all the answers. I'm not here to tell you what's right and wrong. I'm just giving you my opinion and sharing what I think. And hopefully we could continue this discussion on the different tools that exist on the web today and discuss of how we can make it better tomorrow, because we all want. I think that every human being, or most of us, genuinely want to have a great impact in our society and want to be part of a better world tomorrow. And for me, being an entrepreneur, to have this privilege of developing a company today with over 200 people and having the ability to discuss with them, to create new ideas, to see how could we have an impact in our society, it's a tremendous privilege, and I am very grateful for it. And every day we strive to develop the next big thing that will bring our society in a different direction, and most probably in a better direction than it was previously. So I leave you with this, and I hope that you enjoyed this show. I hope you'll tune in next week when we'll discuss another question, and we'll try to look at, on a different angle of entrepreneurship. And that angle, and the question for next week is the following: is school overrated? That will be the question of next week. And the objective of that question is to understand, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that didn't go to school, that were dropouts. But are they really dropouts? Because they've created huge companies. And one of the biggest person that's done that, and that I admire a lot, is Mr. Richard Branson, who created a number, not only one, a couple of billion-dollar companies from scratch. And he doesn't have the background of a lot of people that went to big schools, that went to a lot of educations. I'm Anthony Lacopo, and this is The Entrepreneur Show.
Everything we've done in these over 30 years are about that vision of personal computing.
keep on moving your dream forward, because there is something magical about sticking to your dream longer than anyone around you thinks you have a right to stick to that dream.
When you give everyone a voice and give people power, the system usually ends up in a really good place.
It is really what you give the world that you get back from the world.
One of the best things you can do is to spend some time each day thinking. Because what's the point of getting to the top of your mountain, realizing you did the wrong things?
Stay hungry, stay foolish.